On the second day, the news that Xiao Lihan had sent betrothal gifts to Ji Yunlan instantly swept through the entire capital. Who didn't know that Ji Yunlan was the number one ugly woman in the capital? Everyone mocked that now Xiao Lihan was crippled, he was only worthy of marrying the number one ugly woman. Ji Yunlan sat in her room, listening to the servants whispering in secret, her heart filled only with bitterness. Sure enough, in this life, she had once again caused Xiao Lihan to be ridiculed. When Xiao Lihan said yesterday that he wanted her to marry in another's place, she had been shocked and also a little happy. But when she thought of how in her previous life, because of her, Xiao Lihan had suffered so miserably, even losing his child, Ji Yunlan's heart hurt so badly she could hardly breathe. She truly was someone with a fate too harsh, someone who brought misfortune to others. She could not marry Xiao Lihan again. Absolutely not. She had to go find Xiao Lihan and break off the engagement. Suppressing the dull pain in her heart, Ji Yunlan went to the Prince Zhao's residence. Prince Zhao's residence. Ji Yunlan looked at Xiao Lihan sitting in the seat of honor, his presence powerful yet cold and austere, and her heart ached faintly once more. Xiao Lihan should be like this, noble and untouchable, rather than ending up like in her previous life, dying so tragically because of her. Ji Yunlan steadied herself and spoke calmly. Prince Xiao, Yunlan has come today uninvited to withdraw from the engagement. Before she could finish, the air in the entire hall froze instantly. Ji Yunlan felt the temperature around her drop several degrees, so cold that her breathing became difficult. She raised her head and met a pair of deep, shadowy eyes staring at her through the Ghost King mask, eyes that seemed ready to devour her whole. You want to withdraw from the engagement? The voice was as cold as ice and snow, carrying a barely perceptible fury. But Ji Yunlan knew Xiao Lihan was angry. In her previous life, whenever Xiao Lihan was angry, his face showed no expression, yet the aura around him was so cold it could freeze people in place. Afraid he would misunderstand, Ji Yunlan explained. Prince Xiao, Yunlan is not worthy of you. Yunlan believes you will surely marry the best woman and live a happy life. She couldn't bring herself to say the last part. Just imagining Xiao Lihan marrying another woman made her heart ache, her eyes sting with tears. She lowered her head in embarrassment, despising her own weakness. At that moment, a shadow fell before her eyes and a forceful, icy voice sounded above her head. Ji Yunlan, this prince wants only you. Ji Yunlan's heart trembled violently. She lifted her head in shock. What she saw was Xiao Lihan's expression changing, a faint chill spreading from his body. Seeing this, Ji Yunlan immediately recalled the cold poison that had tormented Xiao Lihan in her previous life. Each time it flared up, he struggled on the brink of life and death. She no longer cared about anything else and asked anxiously, "Your cold poison has flared up, hasn't it? Someone, quick, help the prince to the bed." The steward who had been guarding outside was startled. Not caring why Ji Yunlan knew about the prince's cold poison, he immediately ordered people to carry Xiao Lihan inside. Xiao Lihan's face gradually turned pale. At the moment he lost consciousness, he suddenly reached out with an icy hand and tightly grasped Ji Yunlan's. Ji Yunlan shivered from the cold, but instead of pulling away, she held his hand back. Seeing this, the steward was shocked that the prince would take the initiative to touch Ji Yunlan, yet also relieved that Ji Yunlan, unlike other women, did not avoid him just because he was crippled. After the unconscious Xiao Lihan was placed on the bed, Ji Yunlan immediately ordered, "Everyone out. I will detoxify the prince. No one is allowed to disturb us." Her presence was so commanding that only after leaving and closing the door did the steward and the others realize, wasn't Ji Yunlan a useless, ugly woman? She said she was going to detoxify the prince. How was that possible? Even the imperial physicians and the people from Divine Physician Valley had been helpless. The steward hesitated, wanting to knock, but what if Ji Yunlan truly could do it? Inside the room, Ji Yunlan had no time to care about what the others were thinking. She immediately removed the mask from his face, undid Xiao Lihan's clothes, took out her portable acupuncture kit, and swiftly inserted needles into more than a dozen vital acupoints on his body. A faint mist immediately rose from Xiao Lihan's body, his complexion improving slightly. His handsome brows furrowed, eyes tightly shut, his body trembling. Seeing this, Ji Yulan quickly said softly, "Your Highness, bear with it. It will be painful, but once you endure it, the poison can be eradicated." Ah. Before she could finish, her hand was suddenly pulled. The world spun, and when she reacted, she was already pinned onto the bed by Xiao Lihan, whose eyes were still tightly closed. His lips precisely covered hers. Too noisy. A murmur like something spoken in a dream sounded. Xiao Lihan clung to Ji Yulan as if he had found something precious, rubbing his head against her chest. With a ripping sound, her clothes were torn apart by the unconscious Xiao Lihan, exposing. "Wait! Xiao Lihan, wake up!" Ji Yulan saw that all the silver needles on his body had shifted, and she cried out in panic. But Xiao Lihan gripped her clothes, clearly about to tear the rest off, his head buried in her neck and slowly moving downward. In desperation, Ji Yulan immediately pierced his Feng Fu acupoint. Xiao Lihan's body went limp, completely still. Ji Yulan finally breathed a sigh of relief and struggled to push the unconscious Xiao Lihan to the other side. She stood up and looked at her top, now torn in half, then at Xiao Lihan again, only to see his body trembling slightly, clearly showing signs of the cold poison flaring up once more. She had no time to feel ashamed or angry. She hastily grabbed one of Xiao Lihan's garments and put it on, then quickly helped him remove the needles. Only then did she realize that one of the acupoints had been pierced slightly off due to her tension. No wonder Xiao Lihan had reacted as if drugged and done those things to her. So, what had just happened? The culprit was herself. Thinking of what Xiao Lihan had done to her earlier, Ji Yulan's face heated up. She forced herself not to dwell on it. Taking a deep breath, she inserted the needles again, this time flawlessly. The icy aura around Xiao Lihan slowly dissipated, his complexion gradually improving, revealing a peerlessly handsome face and a well-defined, lean upper body. A broad chest, seductive mermaid lines. Ji Yulan knew well how powerful this body could be. Finely sculpted features, a straight nose, alluring thin lips. Xiao Lihan wore a mask all year round, and people said he looked terrifying, never knowing how breathtaking his appearance truly was. Staring at his lips, Ji Yulan unconsciously touched her own, almost still feeling the lingering heat. At the thought that those lips would one day kiss another woman, her heart clenched in pain. She quickly shook her head. She could not think about it anymore. In this life, she absolutely could not harm Xiao Lihan again. After removing the needles, without waiting for Xiao Lihan to wake up, Ji Yulan immediately wrote a prescription, instructed the steward to prepare medicinal baths on schedule, and hurriedly asked the steward to send her away. Seeing Xiao Lihan sleeping peacefully, the steward was so shocked his jaw nearly dropped. He had recovered so quickly. It was incredible. He was so astonished that he didn't even notice Ji Yulan leaving wrapped in Xiao Lihan's outer robe. As for Ji Yulan, she hurried back and quickly changed her clothes. But just after changing, a choked, tearful voice sounded outside the door. "Eldest sister, Fair has come to apologize to you. I never thought you would truly be willing to marry in my place. Only now did I realize that yesterday eldest sister was saving me. Thinking of the life you'll have after marrying over there, I regret it so much that I wish I could go tell Prince Xiao right now that I am willing to marry him myself." As the words fell, the door was pushed open, and Ji Yufei, crying pitifully, rushed in and threw herself into Ji Yulan's arms. Ji Yulan frowned as she looked at Ji Yufei, whose crying was clearly fake and who had barged in without permission. A cold smile rose in her heart, and she curled her lips slightly. "All right, then go tell him. Prince Xiao will agree." Ji Yufei, who was desperately squeezing out tears, froze. She lifted her head and stared at Ji Yulan in shock. What did Ji Yulan mean? Wasn't Ji Yulan supposed to say she was doing this willingly? In the past, Whenever she said such things, Ji Yunlan would always soften and end up comforting her instead. Seeing the smile at the corner of Ji Yunlan's lips, Ji Yufei stiffly forced a smile and tested, "Eldest sister is joking, right?" However, Ji Yunlan suddenly flung her hand away, looking at her with eyes as if she wanted to peel her skin and tear her apart. At that moment, Ji Yufei felt that Ji Yunlan was like a vicious ghost crawling out of hell, cold, terrifying, and chilling to the bone.